Greetings all. Today is March 29th. Welcome into the revamped, unfiltered, off the Pedestal podcast. I'm Gabe.
I'm Cooper.
Tanner and Brady will not be joining us today.
Tanner, he took a stand and he's being blackballed from the show right now. Brady, I don't know if you listened to last week's episode, he has been suspended for one episode of the podcast due to comments made about the Baylor Bears.
At least 1 week of the podcast. And if you haven't checked it out, check out our Twitter.
OT Pedestal.
And there is a link on there with Brady's hot take, I want to say, on the Baylor Bears when talking about the March Madness tournament. All right, so before we get into all of the basketball today, we want to start off with some MLB. We are multiple days away from opening day. It's the best time of the year. We're going to start off with some award predictions. So, Cooper, let's start with the MVP for the American League. Who do you think is going to be the American League MVP?
Being from Houston, this is no shocker. Carlos Correa.
Interesting.
I would say Altuve, but I expect Correa to put up better numbers than Altuve this year, just by home runs. Home runs will get him the MVP. And it seems like people favor Correa as a star more than Altuve still. Like, they expect him. He's the guy.
I feel like Altuve's underappreciated much, as we saw last year.
Correa's still the guy. Everyone thinks he's still the guy on the team. Like, even though Altuve's been the guy for a while, the common opinion is Correa is still the Jesus of he's the savior of
last year was just a sophomore season, so we'll see how he does in his third year after. You brought up an interesting point that I do like about the AL MVP and Jose Altuve. Last year, a lot of people, and this is not just being in Houston, a lot of people thought that the award should have gone to Jose Altuve as opposed to Mike Trout, who actually won the award. And I know when we were discussing it with Tanner earlier, he said Altuve, he thinks. And I agree with you. I don't think he'll have as good a year. Correa was down a little at the beginning of last year. And I think, and another point we made last week was the World Baseball Classic and if it helps or hurts players. And you know what? I think in Correa's case, I think the World Baseball Classic helped, and I think he's going to come into the season hot, and I think he'll do really well.
Plus the bonding with newly appointed dad, Carlos Beltran.
Yeah. Carlos Beltran, another power hitter added to the Astros lineup. One of the most powerful lineups in the MLB, I'd say.
Offensively, yeah.
Yeah. For the MVP for the American League, I'm going to go with Xander Bogaerts.
Okay, I can understand.
Young player. I think the Red Sox are going to do big things this year.
Somebody we didn't mention, though, Lindor.
Yeah. Lindor's going to... I considered him.
We're going to assume that that's Brady's pick. Brady said Lindor's going to win it.
See, but now if Lindor does win it, we basically just made Brady's pick for him.
We made him sound smart about a sport he knows
nothing
about.
It is also Cooper and our secondary picks. So if Lindor wins AL MVP, just remember this episode.
We're smart too.
Yeah, I think Lindor is, I'd say, a dark horse. He came up in my mind, but I was mostly looking for dark horse. Obviously, you got your mainstream guys, Mike Trout again,
perennial contender.
I mean, it's every
Josh
year.
Donaldson. We could easily say those guys and be like, oh, they're gonna. We'd be like, at the end of the season when they were like in the top three of voting, we could go, oh, we were right because we were somewhat right because they were in the top three. You expect them to be in the top three. They're going to get their votes. It's like LeBron James deserves the vote no matter what.
Yeah. I think some other guys you can look at, obviously, I mean, we said Mike Trout, maybe Jose Bautista. You can look at Manny Machado, Eric Hosmer, just Miguel Cabrera, just some big-name guys that you would expect to be in there every year. But I prefer to go more the secondary route and say Xander Bogaerts, dark horse. I think he'll have even better.
They're probably more than likely going to be the best team in the AL.
I think they will be, and we'll get to that a little later. What about your National League MVP?
Might not surprise you, might though. Corey Seager.
Interesting. You see, that's a name that didn't even come to mind when I was thinking it. I completely agree with you, though. I mean, I think that he could definitely win it. He's one of
and we go back to
guys.
What we were just talking about, perennial. Bryce Harper will be there.
Yep. Bryce Harper will be there. Another guy that's going to be there that I actually think will win it, and this might be a little mainstream since did win it last year. I'm going to go with Chris Bryant.
Not a bad pick, that's for sure. I'm just saying. I feel like Corey Seager, Tanner will appreciate that pick.
Yeah, he will.
Brady also picked Bryce Harper. If you want another right prediction from Brady.
Yeah, there you go. Brady picked Bryce Harper. I mean, you got to look at some other guys. The Rockies have some young guys coming up.
That's also a good point. Nolan Arenado.
Yeah, Arenado.
He could be a perennial.
Even though, Goldschmidt.
Just getting 70 wins. 70 wins with that team probably can get him MVP talks.
That's true. It's like Russell Westbrook and the Thunder. Wins is going to hurt him.
Or Mike Trout with the Angels.
Yeah, fair. Well, he won it last year, though.
Yes, I know, but that's because
Yeah.
they barely won 70, 80 games last year.
Yeah, the Angels are going to be terrible again this year, I think.
We'll get to a little bit.
Yeah, but it's a few of the Cubs players. I mean, Baez, you can look at. It's just all these mainstream guys. Both divisions, or both conferences rather, or leagues, as they're called, are stacked with young players coming into the MLB, looking to have breakout seasons. So Chris Bryant, Xander Bogaerts for me, Seager, and Correa for Cooper. Cy Youngs. Let's move on to that. Who do you think your Cy Young is for the American League?
Well, going with another hometown boy or another Astros guy, I'm going to say Lance McCullers, and it might be a surprise, might not. Depends on what your thoughts. Do you think Lance McCullers would be in a?
I think if he can stay healthy and have a career year,
Okay.
He can contend.
So through his first 2 years of his career, he has a 3.22 ERA, a FIP of 3.16, and a WHIP of 1.326. And another Cy Young winner, Clayton Kershaw, who may or may not be my pick, we'll find out in a minute. 3.36 ERA in his first 2 seasons, 3.47 FIP, and a 1.331 WHIP. And he also has a 9.2 K strikeouts per 9 innings, which McCullers has 10. Which I think if McCullers stays healthy, he's definitely a candidate, and I think he can easily break through. Maybe not easily, but he can break 300 strikeouts this year just with his starts. Jeff Luna, the Astros GM, president, just GM, he said that he's expecting Lance McCullers to start 30 games this year, which last year he was injured a lot, so it's questionable.
Yeah.
But 30 games when you strike out 9, an average of 9 per inning, that equals 300, and if my math is correct.
Wait, 30 times? Yeah.
30 times 10 exactly.
Yeah, no, you're you right.
I think
he averages
I think
10
he can win
strikeouts a
it.
game. But that'd be assuming he goes complete game every time.
That is
Well,
true, but he's also, I don't know.
That
also could take into account a lot of things.
I don't think he'll have 10 strikeouts every game. I think he'll be more of a 5 to 6 guy. But
the only thing that Tanner's argument against me would probably be his walks. That's the number that he needs to keep down in order to.
Yeah, he does. He
keeps
needs to control the ball.
Keeps the base on balls down, and he'll be. I think he's a realistic chance of winning it.
I'm gonna stick with a guy who was hot last year. Fantastic to start his career. He was down for a few years as the teams declined. He was fantastic last year. Arguably, according to his fiance, should have won Cy Young.
Verlander.
I'm gonna go with Justin Verlander.
Verlander, that's tough. He's reaching 34, I think. He's in his age 34 season, I believe. Justin Verlander's a good pitcher. If I was gonna have to pick another guy, like a more not so dark horse, Chris Sale's up there because Sale being on the Red Sox. Sanchez also a contender. Sanchez won 20 games or so last year with the Blue Jays. He might become a reliever, so you never know.
Yeah, I thought about Chris Sale. I didn't want to have all Red Sox picks and make it kind of boring. But no, I like Scherzer. I like the way, or not Scherzer. Well, there you go. There's my pick for the NL. I like Verlander, the way he pitched last year. He was absolutely magnificent. He got his confidence and swagger back. He stayed healthy. So I like Verlander. Since you already know my NL pick, Max Scherzer, there's not much you can say about Max Scherzer. His performance speaks volumes. Brilliant. He was 1 or 2 outs away from multiple complete games last year, or perfect games. Just he's absolutely brilliant. That Nationals team, I think, is going to be more special next year with everyone healthier than years past. But let's hear what you think on the NL.
Well, I said Kershaw might be my pick earlier, which was to throw you guys off. I think it's going to be another pitcher in that division, Madison Bumgarner. I picked him last year. I think he can replicate what he did last year, but on a bigger scale. He kind of had a down month in July or August, one of the two. The whole team did, and that's why they ended up not being in control of the division, which they had sole possession at least 5 games, and they lost it. I digress. Madison Bumgarner, perennial contender like most NL guys. There's not a young guy I can name off the top of my head because my knowledge isn't that good of the young pitchers in the NL. I just got to go with Madison Bumgarner. And we know, me and Gabe can
unanimously.
Yes, that's the word. We can pick that's Tanner's pick is replacing Kershaw.
Yeah, Tanner.
Maybe Zach Greinke.
As we found out earlier.
I think Tanner would like Zach Greinke.
You know what? I think I agree. So Tanner, if you're listening, great pick with Zach Greinke. I completely disagree with you.
Or maybe Will Smith, the reliever from.
Now you know what? Tanner's pick is going to be Kenley Jansen.
You know?
He's a Dodgers pitcher. As we found out, for you longtime listeners...
first time, long time.
Yeah, first time, long time.
Long time.
Tanner is still on his Dodgers high after last year, saying it's a Dodgers world. We're all just living in it multiple times, even though they didn't even get to the World Series. We found out earlier this afternoon he's still on that high. He thinks Clayton Kershaw. He thinks the Dodgers will win the World Series this year.
Yeah, he thinks Kershaw's going to have a good year, but he's still very high on all former Dodgers pitchers. That's why he picked Zach Greinke.
Yeah, Tanner. Zach Greinke, nice pick. He just texted me and his
Excellent.
pick. So
doing the Italian if you couldn't know.
Yeah, because Tanner is Italian, he recently found out.
Mamma mia.
So, let's go to Rookie of the Year. Cooper?
Well, Rookie of the Year. This is, would seem tough, but you gotta go with the number 1 prospect in all of baseball. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Who are you talking about,
It
Cooper?
is, Andrew Benintendi. That is the pronunciation, as far as I believe. I don't know. That's as far as I'm going to get, but he's the number 1 prospect in most rankings lists. He's an outfielder for the Red Sox, and he's expected to have a pretty big year if and when he gets called up, which should skyrocket them into not contendership to the winning of the title.
I think the Red Sox can definitely contend for the title, if not win.
I'm guessing yours is also a former Red Sox prospect.
Mine is not.
Really?
I am going to go with, since we fact-checked earlier and he does meet the requirements, I'm going to go with Braves shortstop Dansby Swanson.
But aren't we in the AL?
Oh, I was just talking... I didn't have an AL. I just picked overall.
Okay.
He
was my NL pick.
Okay. No, I just picked one. I didn't want to go mainstream. I left that to you, and well, I guess since Tanner is not here, you.
He said Mancada.
Yeah, he said Mancada. But I'm gonna go with Dansby Swanson. Ever since he was at Vanderbilt, I thought the world of Swanson, even though I'm more of an Alex Bregman guy myself.
But Bregman's not eligible.
Yeah. Dansby Swanson, absolutely fantastic in what he's shown, and I know this means nothing. Spring training, even playing last year, Dansby Swanson was fantastic, and I think he will continue to be fantastic and mold into a fantastic MLB player. So, is there anything you'd like to say on Dansby Swanson, Cooper?
He's pretty good. He definitely didn't look like a rookie out there. He looked like what Carlos Correa looked like last year when he played. Braves really need that guy. Braves might be a contender to win at least 60 games this year. I think they won like 70 last year. Yeah. Either way, they're going to win more than they did last year. And
well, that's because they got Big Sexy.
Obviously.
Big Sexy.
Somebody has to close down the doors.
The Braves are an absolute fucking train wreck. They got Big Sexy.
They're not a train wreck.
Yes, they are.
They're on their way to rebuild. They got Dansby Swanson, Freddie Freeman.
Freddie Freeman's been on that team.
I know I'm saying that he's a good player with Dansby Swanson.
I know.
Get some pitching.
They're still a train wreck.
Oh yeah, they're a train wreck, but they're a train wreck that can be something in like 2 years.
All right. So speaking of train wrecks, let's talk about standings. Let's go to the AL East, where they do have a train wreck in that division. The Tampa Bay Rays.
Really? You think they're a train wreck?
Yes, the Tampa Bay Rays are a train wreck.
I do too. That's why I was questioning you to make sure.
A train wreck team in a train wreck city in a train wreck stadium.
And who are you going with fourth place?
Fourth place? Oh, I didn't know we were doing from the bottom up, but all right.
You started with the Rays. We got to start from the bottom up.
Okay, so let's go with the bottom up. Fourth place in that division, I'm going to go with the Baltimore Orioles.
Really?
I am.
Orioles, after their year last year, I think that they're going to build on it, and I think Toronto. I don't think Sanchez is going to replicate what he did last year. They've lost. They didn't lose much. Players are getting older. Down years for Tulowitzki last year. I would expect that to continue. I would expect them to be fourth place, but still win at least 75 plus games. It's a good division.
I think between 2, 3, and 4 in the AL East, that will be the tightest race in baseball. I think
it's the wild
maybe 10 games will separate them, and I think both.
It's the wild card plus one ALS team.
Yeah.
I'm not going to reveal which one I'm going to say.
All right. So who do you think will finish third in the AL East?
Well, got to go with the. Well, although I think the Orioles are up and comers, I do think that they'll stay. They'll stay at third.
Yep, I agree, but you and I have the Blue Jays and Orioles flip-flopped. I'm going to have the Blue Jays finish third. And in second, I think we agree with the top two. Yankees. I'm going to go with the New York Yankees in second. Being a Yankees fan, I have no problem. And obviously, for those who are listening, you know who the number one is going to be by process of elimination, the Boston Red Sox. I think the Yankees will be good next year. Their pitching is going to be a little down. However, they have a fantastic bullpen. They got some young talent. They're in a stage they don't like to call rebuilding, but everyone else calls it rebuilding. But they got some young prospects and some trades last year. I just don't think their pitching will be strong enough to contend with Boston. I think Boston is going to be one of the, if not the strongest team in baseball.
Probably
Boston wins the AL East.
Upwards of 90 wins for Boston.
I'd say they could get to 100.
That's why I said upwards of 90.
Yeah. I think they can get to 100. Will it be done? I'm not sure. Do I think it can be done by the Red Sox? Hell yes, I do. All right, so let's go to the AL Central. Since we're working bottom up, I think we all know who the fucking bottom is for the AL Central. Cooper, who are you going to go with?
Well, you'd think I'd say Minnesota.
I thought you would. That's who I'm going to say.
But
they're the shittiest team in the MLB.
I think their prospects are going to get called up a little bit this year, and I do, honestly, the White Sox are garbage.
Interesting.
They are going to be complete garbage, and I think White Sox are fifth.
Okay. Who's your fourth?
Minnesota.
Okay. I have those flip-flopped. I'm going to have the White Sox finishing in fourth.
I don't have them very far from each other, but I do think the White Sox will have a very good.
I agree with you.
Because I expect Quintana to get traded by deadline, and that'll fall them off.
Who do you think is going to finish third? AL Central.
Well, Kansas City.
Interesting.
I still think they're a contender for that wild card spot, but I don't see them getting back to what they were just yet. And I don't losing Ventura, I would be worried still. So I don't expect them to be at the very best with pitching. Wade Davis had a down year. We'll see. I do think that they'll be third though.
If the Royals finish in third, and at least one AL East team and one AL West team make the wild card,
I had contender.
I guess the Royals dynasty is crashing and burning.
I guess you could say that.
Just like something else in the Royals organization.
Yes. Something. You can just decipher that however you want.
I'll leave that up to interpretation. I have the Tigers finishing third in the AL East.
I think we have another flip-flop again.
We do. I think we do. And then I have the Royals finishing in second.
Okay. I think the Tigers are on the up. I like Brad Osmus, surprisingly, for once in my life. I like him as a manager. Their only issues are they're aging, but this is their time frame of winning. As they're aging, they're either gonna finish second for me or last. Just being honest, they're either gonna be second or fourth.
So mediocre or shitty.
Oh yes, because they're in for some trouble. Because they're either gonna end up trading away some of their good players because they realize they suck, or they're gonna be trying to trade away prospects that they probably need to use for later to try to.
So what the White Sox did last year.
Yes.
Okay. It's another consensus for atop the AL Central. This is my pick to win the World Series, and that's the Cleveland Indians.
My pick is probably the Red Sox as of now.
Okay.
But I think the Indians, best pitching rotation in the MLB, arguably with the Mets. That's arguable. The Mets are really good too. It's hard to argue.
You can argue the Red Sox as well.
I don't know. I'm not a David Price down here.
I don't see David Price having a good year.
They probably the best pitcher in the best ace in the AL right now though.
That's maybe something we can debate next week. That sounds like an interesting topic for next week. Let's kick it to the AL West. Who do you have fifth place in your AL West? I mean, do I even need to ask?
The Oakland A's.
Yeah, moving on. The Oakland A's are shit.
That's all you gotta say.
That's it. That's all I'm gonna say.
But can they get on base? No, they can't get on base.
They're terrible. Stop talking about it.
You know that scene in Moneyball where he's like, there's that pile of shit, then that's us at the bottom. Just imagine that without them talking about the money. Just talk about them how bad they are.
There you go.
That's basically what they are.
Fourth place.
Fourth place. The Angels.
Yeah. Okay. I think we might agree on this whole division. Who are you gonna have third?
The Rangers.
I stand. Actually, no. I'm gonna agree with you.
Rangers older. Their pitching still lacking. We talked about it a lot last year on the podcast, and they haven't improved their relieving core, and they've only lost prospects. They're not going to get much better.
I think they're going to finish third because they have one of the dumbest front offices in baseball.
They're in their window, and they can't open it.
They said, well, you know what? I think we can win it all next year. They didn't even have a goddamn chance, but we're going to try and win it all. We're going to sell all our prospects to go do it, except for Joey Gallo, because he almost hit for a cycle in his first game in the MLB. But didn't do anything afterwards. But you know what? God damn it, he's fantastic.
But he's in Double-A now. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
He was better than Cray for a week. Remember that?
Yeah. Joey Gallo. I still don't understand the hype. All right. That means we both have the Mariners finishing second.
Mariners are second.
Mariners. Every
year.
year.
Wrong with picking Mariners. Cano. Always going to be good. Pitching. King Felix.
Every year, everyone always says, oh, Mariners AL West. They're going to win it. Gonna win it. They never win it. They always underperform, but you know what? God damn it. I think this year they can contend for a wild card spot. I think this will be their year
that's my team,
do well.
I think having a good ace will give you that, and that's what they have.
Yep.
And the rest of the team will fall into its places this year.
I completely agree. And that means we have a consensus number one as well, again, with the Houston Astros.
Yep.
as we mentioned earlier, one of the strongest offensive teams in baseball.
And a lot of question marks on the bullpen, on the starting rotation. A lot of them are if they're can return to Cy Young, if McCullers can stay healthy, if those things happen, then they're arguably one of the best teams in MLB. If not, they're easily in the ALCS.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier. The best closing rotation in all of baseball, with 2 World Baseball Classic winning pitchers in Luke Gregerson and Pat Neshek. Even though Neshek isn't that great for the Astros,
I wouldn't consider Neshek anything.
They also have Will Harris, who was an all-star player last year,
Harris?
and Ken Giles. All right, with that retarded comment, we're moving on.
That was his nickname.
For some. We're moving on to the National League. So, your National League East. I'm going with the Braves at number 5. Like I said earlier, they're a train wreck. Despite Dansby Swanson, they're a train wreck.
I would have to agree because it's not hard.
I
can't argue a point that's saying that they're not 5th.
I will make a bold prediction and say Big Sexy wins 20 games next year with the Braves.
Wins 20 because he hit 20 dongers to put him.
Exactly. I'm optimistic in saying that the Braves will have at least 20 wins under Bartolo Colon.
At least 20 wins total.
That's a hot take. Alrighty. Number 4, I'm going to go with the Phillies.
I mean, you're just making it hard for me to argue against them.
They showed signs of up and coming last year, and they fell just as hard as they came back up. Phillies are a young team. They've got a young set of pitchers. Really not much leadership and experience anymore after their great run in 09 and 07, I believe. Just those few years. They really haven't been anything since. Give it a few more years for the Phillies. Number 3, and I think this is one of the most top-heavy divisions in baseball. I'm going to go with the Marlins.
Not hard.
They were fantastic last year.
They're in need of an ace.
Yeah, they were a bit streaky, and that's what ended up costing them. But they showed that they could contend for a while.
They're a wild card contender. I think they can barely. I don't know if they can win more than 80 games, but
I don't think they can. I think they win within 70 to 80.
Yeah, I think mine's 70 to 85. At most.
Now, given Giancarlo Stanton did miss a lot of games last year, I think
D. Gordon missed a lot too.
Yeah, well, D. Gordon was suspended for a lot.
He still missed.
Yeah, I knew he did. If D. Gordon doesn't get suspended, and if Giancarlo Stanton doesn't get hurt,
suspended.
Yeah.
They finally decided to drug test Giancarlo Stanton. They might be in trouble.
Still don't think he's on steroids for the record.
I do.
Who do you have as your top 2? Give me your winner for the National League East.
Mets.
Okay.
Are we?
I'm disagreeing with you. I have the Nationals.
I continually not. I don't want to trust the Nationals. They're the team that's there but not there, which we'll have some of those conversations later in the show about other teams like that.
Yeah, I think they're there. I think this is the Nationals' year to really get there. I think the rest of the National League, with the exception of the Cubs, are going to have a quote-unquote down year. I think the number 2 spot in the National League is up for grabs. Obviously, the Cubs, reigning World Series champions, very young, returning a lot of guys, fantastic manager, are the best team. But I really don't think, like in the American League, there are a definitive top 2 teams in the National League.
Yeah. I don't think the Nationals are one of them. That's just me.
I think they can be. I don't think they are. I think they can.
I trust the Mets rotation more. I trust the Mets have a lot more players. I do struggle with their batting and the offense, but if you play good enough defense, the offense won't matter too much. Arguably.
All right, so let's go to the NL Central, arguably the best division in baseball.
Yeah.
Obviously, well, who's your number 5?
Number 5? It's not that hard.
I just want to hear what you think. Who do you have at number 5?
Cincinnati.
Interesting. See, I'm going to go Milwaukee.
I was tossing that up. I couldn't decide.
Yeah, this is a very, very top-heavy division as well. The Brewers and the Reds were terrible last year. They had some individual players who did good things, but they're also really bad. I will make another prediction saying in the MLB this year, there are either going to be really good teams or really bad teams. I don't think there will be very many in between, maybe 5 teams in between. And I think the Reds and the Brewers are on the bad side of that. So we flip-flopped the 4 and 5, obviously. Top 3, the Cubs, the Cardinals, and the Pirates. Give me your 3 in order and why.
Cubs, Pirates, Cardinals.
All right. Yep.
I don't think there's Pirates on the rise. They can easily, not easily, but they can contend for this thing. Just win a couple games against. Just win a couple more. They were there last year. They just need a few more games over the Cubs, and they're there. St. Louis, can't count them out. I think they'll still contend for a wild card, contend for that second spot. The only thing that's going to hurt them is the loss of their number one prospect with Tommy John. That'll hurt them this year. And then Cubs, they're going to Cubs.
Yeah, I really don't think you can ever count out the Cardinals, although I'm going to agree with you. I have them finishing 3rd. I like the Pirates. I like the way they were playing towards the end of last year, although they did lose some key games and lose some key starters to injury. I really do like the way they played with the intensity and the swagger they played with, the confidence, and I think they'll bring that into this year and turn that into something really, really good. The Cubs. They're, like I said earlier, touched on it a little bit, they could be the number 1 team in baseball. Between them, the Red Sox, and the Indians, I think it's up for debate, but I think those are your definitive top 3 heading into the year.
Yeah.
Heading into the NL West.
This is going to be... I bet... So, I'm guessing your 5th is San Diego.
My 5th was going to be Arizona.
I think they're interchangeable. They're both almost equally as bad.
Yeah.
San Diego doesn't have Greinke, and Greinke could easily have a top year again.
He could, but I don't think he will. Zach Greinke was terrible last year.
Plus, it's about time for Arizona to call up some prospects. So, that's my argument.
Yeah.
But I guess, they did draft Dansby Swanson. Oh, wait, where is he now? Not playing for them. They decided they wanted Greinke and other things.
Yep. All right.
And Goldschmidt. I can't count Goldschmidt. That's right.
Yeah, see, Goldschmidt, I think, for the Diamondbacks is the only bright spot. That is it. They are, okay.
My thing is...
in the movie Nemo.
Yes.
When they're all the way down at the bottom in the black of the sea, and then here comes that one fish, the weird freaking thing with the light on its head. That's the only light there. That is what Paul Goldschmidt is in Phoenix.
I agree. The reason why I have San Diego 5th is because I honestly can't name one player that makes them have that bright spot.
Yeah. Well, they have a few guys who can play.
But they're not Goldschmidt. They're not gonna swing games like Goldschmidt will.
See, I don't think Goldschmidt has enough around him to do that. But if you look at the Padres roster, they've acquired a few guys over the last few years, such as Hunter Renfroe, Will Myers. Not terrible, pretty good guys. But I think they lack pitching. That's why I have them in 4th. I don't think they'll be as bad. When you spend over $200 million on a player like Arizona did with Greinke, and he's that bad, he's going to put your team in a hole.
Yeah, honestly, I don't see... Either way, these teams will be really close to each other in the standings and not in a good way.
Yep. So 3rd, I think we're gonna have a consensus agreement on this one.
Colorado.
Nolan Arenado, obviously one of the best players in the league last year. He struggled a little bit in the World Baseball Classic. So we'll see if he can get his confidence back. He was really antsy up at the plate. Maybe still recovering from his high last year. We'll see what he can do this year. I like the Rockies to finish third, middle of that division.
Stories bad.
So this is probably... I don't know if we're going to disagree here. I know Tanner would disagree with me.
I think we're going to agree here then.
Okay, so who do you think is second?
Dodgers.
I agree with you.
I think the downturn... I think the reason why... We can't forget that the Giants had like a 6-game lead and then they just fell off like in August. And it doesn't usually bode well for MLB if you fall off in the month of August. You can fall off in April, just don't fall off in August.
I think that sounds like an A's reference.
Well,
can be. From a few years ago. I'm gonna just say this. Last year, I picked the Giants because it was an even year. What happened? They didn't win. So you know what? God damn it. They're going to start a new streak of winning odd years.
Maybe it's not the Giants winning in even years. Maybe it's the National League winning in even years.
Maybe you're right.
Think about it. I think we're destined for the Red Sox to win it this year. I mean, they won it. It's an odd year. The Red Sox won it the last time it was an odd year. Well, they didn't. No, it was the Royals. But they've won it before in an odd year.
I think the Giants will start a new streak.
I don't think they're winning it, but I think they'll make
They're obviously going to be close within 3 games, I think, atop of that division. And I think the runner-up in the NL West will be a wild card team. That's a given, just like an AL West team. An AL East team. Don't know where my mind is right now. But, yes, so
I think we got Pirates.
Tanner's pick is the Dodgers.
Brady's pick is Arizona.
There you go. I like that. Moving on, now we are going to transition into the Final Four, something that the Arizona Cardinals, wow, we're throwing all 3 sports into the mix here. So, I'm going to kick a touchdown real quick. Add more in. So, Final Four, some shocking teams in here. First game, UNC Oregon. Who do you have in this one?
UNC Oregon? Can't bet against UNC.
My pick depends. I have UNC in my Final Four. They're the only team I predicted correctly in my bracket to get to the Final Four. We're not going to talk about my brackets. That's a sensitive subject.
Nobody wants to talk about brackets. Wisconsin was supposed to win it all. If you didn't know, that's why Brady's not here.
Brady had Creighton winning it all.
No, we didn't get to talk about how our brackets were doing last week. We get to now because Brady's not here to ruin it.
There you go. Yeah, my bracket is terrible. I'm in the 60th percentile.
Second chance bracket. I'm in the 89th.
I didn't make a second chance bracket because I don't believe in it.
I don't believe in it, but I think it shows that I knew what I was doing after picking those wrong ones.
Yeah. My winners were actually knocked out by Oregon last week, the Kansas Jayhawks. I think this game can go either way. It depends on if Joel Berry plays. If Joel Berry plays for UNC, I think UNC will grind and grit one out, and I think they'll win by 7 points, 5 points. Oregon always hangs around. I had Oregon, honestly, losing early.
So did I.
I did not think Oregon would make it this far, but I've watched them all throughout this tournament. They've been absolutely fantastic. They've come back multiple times. They've been in every game. But I think with Joe Barry, I think UNC's too much to handle. I think otherwise it's Oregon by 12.
Oregon by 12. I got UNC. I don't have the score, but I have UNC.
So I have UNC by 7 or 5. I'll go with 5. I'll go UNC winning by 5 with Joel Berry, Oregon winning by 12 without Joel Berry. I think he has that much of an impact on and off the court. Now let's go to the Cinderella story. Both of them, really.
I mean, I don't like the whole idea that Gonzaga is considered a Cinderella when they're the 1 seed.
See, I like calling them that because, yes, they have one loss, but they have been doubted by everyone, myself included. I doubted Gonzaga, didn't think they'd do that well, but here they are in the Final Four with Frank Mason's South Carolina Gamecocks, the 7 seed, a team who lost in the SEC tournament early to Alabama. This team has been absolutely magnificent. They've shown so much heart. In their win over Duke, in their win over Florida, they've taken out some teams that they really shouldn't even be on the same floor with, had we thought going into those games. Who's your pick for Gonzaga, South Carolina?
South Carolina. I think you can't go wrong with how hot they are.
Interesting. I am going to go the opposite direction. I've doubted Gonzaga for so long. I like the Zags. I hate to pick against South Carolina. I really do. But I think their magical run comes to an end. Now, that being said, if they were to win against Gonzaga, I don't think anyone's stopping them. I think South Carolina matches up very well against Oregon. UNC, they can play with. We saw what they did to Duke. They put up over 60 second half points. So I'm going to go with the Zags. But if South Carolina were to win, I think they win it all.
I think if South Carolina wins, they win it all. I think if Gonzaga wins that game, I think UNC wins it all. I think if Oregon wins, no matter what, the winner if Gonzaga, South Carolina wins.
Interesting. So you're not giving Oregon a chance at all?
Not with any of these teams.
Interesting. See, I think Oregon would beat Gonzaga. I think South Carolina would beat Oregon. I think Gonzaga would beat UNC, but I think I think Oregon would beat Gonzaga.
Yeah, I don't have Oregon highly touted in mind.
I've doubted all of these teams except for UNC, so I clearly don't know what I'm talking about this year.
It's a down year.
It is a down year, and speaking of down years, let's talk about the most disappointing college basketball programs this year. It's an interesting topic. You wanted to touch on it. You have multiple programs, so let's hear your number 1 program.
Let's start with the easy one, Kansas.
How so?
Well, Kansas. Every year going into the tournament, is Kansas considered a contender, like the number 1 team that you'd pick for the title almost every year?
I haven't picked them yet in my years of bracketing. This was my first year to pick them.
No, but they're always making it far in your brackets. They're always in the Final Four.
They're not always in the Final Four of mine. I'd have to go back and look, but I did not have them.
But
in
popular
the Final Four
opinion
the last
is
2 years.
they have a really good.
They have a really good program. Bill Self's fantastic.
They have a program where they can make it almost. They can make it at least the Elite 8, but there's the team that pre-tournament you're picking them in your brackets. People are picking them to win. They have the talent. They can win it, but then they reach
the Elite 8
or any.
The Elite 8 most of the time.
Yes, and then that's eventually these guys. Bill Self, a great coach, but eventually he'll be held accountable for this. He can't keep building these teams that can make it but not make it. Like I said earlier, they're a team that's there but not there at the same time.
Here's my argument against that. Here's my rebuttal to you. Obviously, we're taking the disappointing college basketball programs question interpreting it differently. When I think of disappointing basketball programs this year, I don't think of Kansas. Here's my thing, and here's my problem with everyone saying that Kansas always loses in the Elite 8. I don't think there was a clear favorite this year. Even when we're down to a Final Four, as we were just talking about, we don't even know who's going to win it all.
Yeah, but you also said most of these teams in here, except for UNC, nobody gave a chance.
Exactly. So. But here's the thing, is there wasn't a clear favorite going into this tournament. There hasn't been a clear favorite all year, unless you're a Gonzaga fan and you believe that the one-loss Zags are the best team in the NCAA, to which right now I can't disagree with you. I don't think there was a clear favorite going into this year. Obviously, Kansas was a safe bet. I liked Kansas. I was obviously mistaken. People like Duke. They were mistaken. People liked teams like Villanova to repeat. See what happened there. I just don't think that this year can be considered a disappointment for Kansas because they weren't the overall favorites to win it all. Now, would they have liked to go past the Elite Eight? Any team would.
I mean, I'm more taught not just this year alone for my argument. I'm just talking about most disappointing programs. Did I say this year in my?
Not necessarily, but that's how I interpreted it.
I put it in their program. I said most disappointing NCAA programs. If I just said for this season, I wouldn't have to put program.
Okay.
I'm talking about their program. Kansas, perennial contender, perennial loser in the Elite Eight.
All right, so who's your second team?
Second team is an easy one, Arizona.
Why?
Once again, they're there, but they're not there. They can win. People will put. They're not going to be obviously as contender as highly touted as a team like Duke or UNC, but I'm just at this point. I'm questioning whether or not Arizona really will ever be able to get it done. They're the team. They have the talent. They can get it done, but they just can't get it done. If that makes sense.
All right. So before you name your third, I'm gonna go with my number one. And like I said, we interpreted this totally differently. I'm gonna go with the Georgetown Hoyas. Georgetown. This is a program that has 9 Elite 8 appearances. They have made it to 5 Final Fours, finished the tournament runner-up 3 times, and been crowned champion once in 1984. Georgetown, ever since they won their title in the 80s, they have been one of the teams that has been in the tournament almost every year. Now, this year, they were 14 and 18. They suffered some really bad losses, underwent a coaching change. They were 5 and 13 in conference play, terrible on the road. They were 3 and 8 on the road, and they were a mediocre 9 and 8 at home. For a program that big, that should not be happening. When you're in Georgetown, all there is to talk about is basketball. No one says, man, Georgetown football team really killed it. Man, how about that Georgetown baseball team? No, it's Georgetown basketball. Always is, always will be, but this year, they were pathetic.
Can't argue that.
So who is your third pick?
Well, caller on the line.
Got our first caller.
We should answer it and ask them what they would like to add to the conversation. Maybe next time. Anyway, before we move on, Georgetown, by the way, rumoredly maybe hiring Patrick Ewing. Is your next
They would not. Well, they were talking about it.
They might interview him, is what I saw.
All right, so who is your third team? We still don't know all that.
This might be more coach than program. Over the last 10 years, Kentucky. 1 title in John Calipari's long tenure career, not just with Kentucky, just in general. 1 title with how good of a recruiter you are, that's getting disappointing. Overall, you gotta know what you're doing, and I'm Calipari. He's probably destined to leave for the NBA in a year now with all his players being there. He builds and forms some of the most talented lineups, and he basically dominates the NBA with all his players.
Yeah. Especially in New Orleans.
I'm starting to question his actual coaching skill. Not his recruiting, but his actual coaching.
I'm going to go in a different direction with... like I said, totally different interpretations. I can see where you're coming from, and I agree with you on all of those. They all did not have the years they expected. De'Aaron Fox is brilliant.
No, De'Aaron Fox is good.
I think he's brilliant. Malik Monk, great. They had some really young guys. Obviously, they're all going to be one and dones because that's the new norm in college
That's the
basketball.
Kentucky way.
It is the Kentucky way. Unfortunately for Kentucky fans, well, not unfortunately, because they're going to restock with some great players next year.
Like always.
As
But
always.
you can't buy jerseys.
You can't. I would just put my name on the back of the jersey at that point.
I mean, what? I don't know many people that buy like college jerseys.
No, I don't either, but if they do, I don't know if they have the name on them.
Most of them don't, because you have to order custom one with the number.
Yep. So, that being said, since we're talking about jerseys, number 3, or number 2, rather, for me, my number 3 is more of a personal thing. The Indiana Hoosiers. Fired Tom Crean.
They were very disappointing this year. I can give you that.
They were. They started out very hot. At one point, they were 10-2 on the season. Do you know what they finished?
I'm assuming they still have 10 wins.
18-16.
It's not.
They finished 18-16. Not only did they not make the tournament, they had some bad losses. And I'm not going to say this is that bad. They lost at Minnesota. They barely squeaked out a win at Penn State. They lost at Maryland. Lost versus Nebraska at home. Their really last signature win was versus Northwestern. And that was 5-6 games. It was 5 games before the tournament. Obviously, they weren't going to get it in. And in the NIT, which is, for those who don't know, the next best teams that don't make it into the NCAA tournament, they were eliminated in the first round by Georgia Tech. Now, Georgia Tech was a good team. Georgia Tech was a very good team. Underrated. Maybe even a tournament contender, depending on how you value big wins such as Jim Boeheim. But they lost by 12 points, 75-63. Tom Crean was fired after that, after a fantastic last few years with the exceptions this year. Indiana, historically, one of the best basketball programs when you think of Bobby Knight, all of those guys. They are 5-time champions. To not make the tournament this year after making it the last 2 years and 3 of the last 4 of the last 5, that hurts.
It stings a little bit.
It does. And my number 3 is just, and I'm not going to talk about this very much, but the LSU Tigers. My Tigers were terrible this year, resulting in the firing 2 years too late of Johnny Jones, which I couldn't be happier with. Hired VCU's Will Wade. Terrible year for that historic program as well.
Can't disagree.
So, speaking of terrible teams, let's discard all of them in the NBA. And we are going to only focus on the 8 teams currently in a playoff
Should we do
spot.
9 though for Nuggets?
We can do 9.
Because they're
If
still
you
closer.
want to
It's a
talk
closer
about
race.
the Nuggets, go ahead.
They're technically they could still easy.
So what Cooper and I are going to do, we are going to give you apparently the 9 teams, because the Nuggets and the Blazers are very close for the 8th seed.
We probably won't do that for the East because we don't really care.
The East is not that important.
Half of them have losing records that are in the playoffs. Roughly.
What we're going to do is we are going to make a case for all of the 9 teams in the Western Conference and why they can win the title. So, Cooper, where should we start? Should we start at the top or should we start at the bottom?
I think the top would be easier, so let's start at the bottom.
All right, let's start at the bottom. Give me your case for the Denver Nuggets. Try and convince me, if I were a Vegas bettor, to place my money on the Denver Nuggets winning it all.
Emmanuel Mudiay, he's been there, done that, only in China, but he's been there. And they're big man. They're really talented offensively. They've been, when they've gone up against the Warriors this year, they've done pretty good stopping them. They've done pretty well against good teams. They've been able to stay close. And in a 7-game series, I think they can they can honestly beat almost anyone but the Spurs probably. And most likely, there's a good chance. There's like a 50-50 chance. Well, 75% chance, 25% chance, something in that percentage that they would have a chance to play the Spurs, and I think they could easily beat. I think most teams from the West have an easy chance against most Eastern Conference teams. I think the Nuggets offensively, and I think it was only a couple nights ago where they completely blew out the Cavaliers. We're just going to use the Cavaliers as our stand-in East contender right now.
Yep.
Just even though they're not the 1 seed, which we probably should go by the 1 seed, but we're going to go by the Cavs because
the Cavs I think are.
Well,
the true
I'm talking
1
about.
seed.
I'm just gonna. LeBron James is the perennial finals.
Oh yeah.
8 years, right? 7 years.
6 years in a row.
Okay, close enough. So
It's soon,
I don't know if
7.
that explained to you why I think the Nuggets would win it. I don't know if that explained to me why I'd ever want to consider them winning it because I don't think it did. So what do you have? Can you convince me that to build off?
Off the Nuggets?
Yeah. Who do you think?
You touched on it. The Nuggets are one of the best offensive teams in the NBA.
They're one of the best offensive teams without their 3-point shooting being one of the best. They're not an often 3-point shooter. They're often paint.
Yep.
Which would actually, you think that would surprise you, but if you actually think about it, the smaller type of basketball everyone else is playing at the Nuggets, you think it'd be easier for them with their big man, it'd be easier to score, which it's proven to be.
See, the Nuggets to me are like the Utah Jazz. They're very quiet in their success. Now, call it what you want. I think the Nuggets are having a successful year compared to what I thought they'd do at the beginning of the year. They're very good in transition. They have a very young and athletic team with a hint of experience needed. If they can squeak in at the 8 spot and take it from the Blazers, do I think they can compete with the Warriors in a 7-game series? Yes. Do I think they will win? No, but can they? Definitely.
Especially if KD's out.
Which I don't think he will be. He's going to be reevaluated in 7 to 10
but we
days.
can get to if they're better with KD or without him.
Well, we can talk about that later. Alrighty. So, number 8. As of right now, the Portland Trailblazers.
Do we really have to say it? Damian Lillard.
Guard play.
Damian
Fantastic
Lillard,
guard play.
easily top 5 guard.
I
could say top 3, but it's hard to justify. I'm talking point guard, and it's hard to. It depends on what you're standing on James Harden still, if he's a shooting or point guard. He's playing point guard this year, but he's technically still shooting guard.
I think the Blazers guard play has been fantastic. Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, one of the best backcourts, if not the. It's up to you.
I think McCollum
they're up there.
McCollum's probably the X factor in them winning it. I think if he's hot, I think Lillard will be hot regardless. It's up to McCollum to win it.
Yep, I think it's like the duo up in Toronto as well. Something about those northern teams and the good backcourts. At 7, the Memphis Grizzlies. Obviously, they haven't been that good in the playoffs.
This one's an easier one to. Other than our last 2, this is an easy one. Yeah. Basically, Grizzlies. If you look at the team, some of the best teams they've beaten this year they've beaten the Warriors, they've beaten the Spurs, they've beaten the Rockets. They've had somewhat of a good series. I think they're leading the series against the Spurs currently.
Who, the
Grizzlies? I think they're
the Grizzlies are leading the series against all 4 top Western Conference teams.
I think that if they get the matchups that they need and everyone stays healthy, especially Marcus Gasol, they'll be good, and that's really all we have to say.
See, I think the Grizzlies would be more favorable against the Spurs where they are now at 7. They could possibly move up to 6. The Grizzlies haven't been that good in the playoffs over the last few years, so that's the one thing I would dock them for. Injuries
last year I wouldn't. Last year when they fired their coach, I didn't think that was a good move. Just throwing that out there. They threw him out. They fired their coach after having 30 guys come in all season to play. 30 different. From their starting lineup. Typically, when in the NBA, your lineup is the best lineup. On opening day, you're gonna have the best lineup. I think every player that they had play almost. This is just a stat. I'm pretty sure at least majority of those players weren't starting in their playoff series against the Spurs last year.
I don't exactly remember who eliminated them.
Maybe I think they were 5th seed, surprisingly. I think they were probably no. It was Portland. They played Portland. Portland moved on and they played the Spurs and not the Spurs. Well, they either whatever. Let's move on. Can't think of that far back.
Team basketball is key for the Grizzlies, even more so than anyone else, maybe but the Spurs. Great defensively. Mike Conley's underrated. Let's move to 6 in the OKC Thunder.
Well, another easy one. Russell Westbrook. That's basically all you got to say.
I think that's it. Russell Westbrook, 37 triple doubles.
They're going to hit a roadblock
MVP
the
candidate.
Warriors, but
there you go.
The Warriors might hit a block in the road against the Jazz.
I think the Thunder, their weak matchup would be against the Warriors. I don't think they could grind it out in a 7-game series against the Warriors. The Rockets games with the Thunder are always close. They have a favorable record against the Jazz this year. Grizzlies are always tough in the playoffs for the Thunder. So I think, other than the Warriors, because we've seen the Thunder beat the Spurs, both teams at full health as well.
I think the Warriors and the Cavs are the hardest teams for them.
I agree with you.
I think those teams are the only argument. I think Russell Westbrook plays Russell Westbrook game and they can win.
Triple-double ball. So, number 5 right now, a game up on the number 6, is the LA Clippers.
Well, this is an easy one. The Big Three. Big Three stays hot. Austin Rivers plays 0 minutes. They win it all.
Yeah. Here's the key. Austin Rivers staying off the court.
Did not play. Resting for life.
Stop putting your son in, Doc. The Clippers are healthy at the right time. Unlike most teams, Blake Griffin is in there. DeAndre Jordan's healthy. Chris Paul is back. Now, Blake Griffin isn't the same Blake Griffin as we've seen in years past. If they can get this chemistry thing going again, and they can ride a little streak heading into the playoffs, I think the Clippers, with Doc Rivers' experience, say what you want about him. Experience matters in the NBA playoffs. Doc Rivers knows he just doesn't need to play his son. Austin Rivers he's terrible at that team.
Yeah.
He weighs him down.
But if you want to look at it, when Chris Paul was out, he was very efficient. I will give him that. He was underrated when Chris Paul was out. He was actually just above mediocre.
Hot takes with Cooper.
No, but he was. You can look at his efficiency. It was way up when he was starting.
Yeah.
With Chris Paul out, which could be.
Let's look at the Jazz.
This, honestly, though, with the Clippers, this could be the last year we see this Big Three together.
Yeah, we talked about it at the beginning of the year. I could see Blake Griffin going back to Oklahoma.
This is an impending doom.
DeAndre Jordan. Here's the thing. I think that ruin the chemistry. There are 2 things that ruin the chemistry for... I'll say 3 things that ruin the chemistry for the Clippers. The Blake Griffin incident last year inside the team.
Yeah.
DeAndre Jordan saying he was going to leave.
I don't know. I think that may have made him closer at that point.
And then Austin Rivers just being there.
Because that's got to... Inside the city, like inside the players, like locker room, you have to think that that's just... He's only starting because he's the coach's son.
Yeah.
He's only playing because he's the coach's son.
That's the only reason I think he has a job.
Probably. I don't know. Lakers could always use more guards or something.
Maybe the
Sixers.
Pistons. Sixers.
There's a lot of teams out there that aren't that good that could use players that are also not that good.
I was waiting for
somebody has to be their starting tank guard.
Let's look at the Jazz.
Well, Gordon Hayward, one of the better defensive teams in the league. They've showed that they can beat up teams like the Rockets. And if players, Rudy Gobert, hot. And I think they have a good chance.
Rudy Gobert is hot. I agree.
It's not what he's...
Interpret that how you will. I'm just saying he's on a hot streak right now. He's a very good player.
He is.
Jazz, just like we mentioned with the Grizzlies and just like the Spurs play, team basketball. But unlike the Grizzlies And the Spurs, yeah, Gobert's good. You don't hear his name thrown around as often. They don't really have a quote-unquote superstar. It's just the Jazz. Like, if I were just a moderate basketball fan, let's say Tanner, perfect example of a moderate basketball fan. He cares, doesn't care too much. You don't show him standings for the year, and you say, how are the Utah Jazz doing? What would the typical response be?
8 seed.
Yeah, mediocre, bottom half in the playoffs, if in the playoffs. But here they are at the 4 seed. Quietly at the 4 seed. I think that's key for them. So, let's analyze the 3 best teams in basketball, in my mind.
Could make some
right now.
There's no debating what we've been doing so far. They're easily the best 3 in basketball.
I think they're the best 3 in basketball right now overall. Debatable. Best 3 right now. That's what I'm going to say.
Hop into number 3 with the Rockets. This is also needs James Harden. If he can heal up on that wrist, Rockets make their threes. I would say defense, but we know how that'll go for that team. Just make your threes and they stand a chance.
I think they need to stay healthy.
Which is part of it.
Yeah, Harden needs to stay healthy.
I think with all these, staying healthy is just with it.
I think that's a given, but there's a few teams that can afford an injury, i.e. the Warriors. If you look at the Houston Rockets, if a player gets injured, it's all over for them.
Depends on the player.
I think if a starter gets hurt,
I think
it could be all over for them.
If not James Harden getting hurt, I think the most devastating would be Pat Beverly.
I completely agree with you. I was just about to say that. Because
in the playoffs, you need the star. You need this. There's stars on almost every team in the playoffs, and who's going to guard that star with Pat Beverly out?
Pat Beverly,
but they would. I think that if Pat Beverly got injured, I think the Thunder would easily win that series. Maybe not easily, but they'd win in 6.
I think if Pat Beverly gets hurt, he is the only team. He's the only player. Wow, the only team. Pat Bev, new team in the NBA. Patrick Beverly is the only player on that team preventing every other team in the NBA from putting up at least 120 on the Rockets on
nights that they're losing.
Any night.
When they're winning, you might get 120. You don't know with the Rockets. If the Rockets are winning, they don't play defense. They don't play defense anyway, but depends on.
I think he's one of the only ones.
He had some trouble shutting down Steph last night, but who doesn't?
Yeah, Steph is very.
He's playing very tight defense last night, and Steph just jacked him up like he usually does, and they fall down.
All right, so let's go to the best example of team basketball in recent years. One of the best dynasties we have been alive for as 18-year-olds, the San Antonio Spurs.
They're my number 1 team. I think Spurs are going to Spurs. Kawhi Leonard, best defender in the whole league, best two-way player in the league. There's probably only like 3 players I'd take above them if we were doing a complete draft. Maybe only 2.
It'd be very hard to. I'm going to say this. I don't think we talked about it last week. If we did, excuse me. But you and I talked about it, I know. At the beginning of the year, Cooper and I were about to make a bet. We were waiting on Tanner and Brady to figure out the punishment for the loser.
Let's just say one of us is very happy this isn't happening.
Yeah, as to who would win in a 7-game series, the Spurs or the Warriors. I called Cooper absolutely insane for saying that the Spurs at this point in the year would hang with the Warriors in a 7-game series. But not only is my opinion completely flipped, I think the Spurs could win in 5 against the Warriors.
I think they could possibly win in 4 depending on which type of Warriors they're getting. Because you never know. Kevin Durant could come back a little bit early. He's going to come back for the playoffs, but he can come back early and not be the same player. But still, the reason why you said it called me out was because you thought the Pau Gasol signing was awful. I was like, Tim Duncan was almost complete garbage last year in the playoffs. You can't get much worse than a 42-year-old starting at power forward. And when they put Pau Gasol out there, he might not be the best player, and then you just look at their bench, and they got players that could start in other teams, but they take pay cuts to play with the Spurs. What was it, David West a few years ago? He could have gotten like $13 million from like the Pacers for some reason, and then He took a pay. He's only getting paid $1 million to play for the Spurs.
Mm-hmm. Anything else you'd like to add on the San Antonio Spurs?
Well, they're my favorite to win it all. That's all I got.
I'm gonna be insane. I'm gonna say they're my favorite to win the Western Conference, and find out next week who I'm gonna go with to win it all as my favorite pick.
It's not hard if you've already said who you're.
If you've listened to last week's podcast,
and if you listen this week too, because you said the number one team in the East already. You and your heart
it's the Cleveland Cavaliers.
But,
despite their regular season performance, still think they're fantastic.
When you say LeBron killer, you think of one player, and that's Kawhi Leonard.
Yep.
He won the MVP of the year. The last 2 years in Miami, we're seeing the fall and the collapse of the Cavs. Not really.
All right, so take me through the Warriors. Obviously, this isn't hard to decipher. But let's hear your case.
If the chemistry doesn't get destroyed and they play like they're expected to play, they should easily win it all.
If you all would like, and I know there's tens of you listening.
Hey, that's an improvement. 10.
Go look at my Twitter, my personal Twitter, not my regular Twitter.
I mean, you're on private, but
yeah, and I will accept you at Gabe Henderson 45, and take a look at my pinned tweet. I have kept this up.
I have kept mine
for almost a year
since the day Kevin Durant signed.
Yes, and that is what I did as well. And I tweeted out, y'all watch. Kevin Durant is going to disrupt the chemistry there, and they will lose in the finals. And although I don't think they're the favorite to win the Western Conference, I think if they make the Western Conference Finals, or if they make the finals, Kevin Durant will screw that chemistry up. And I don't think the Warriors will win it. So I think, as you mentioned earlier, the Warriors are better off without Kevin Durant.
Which we'll talk about in a minute. My pin tweet is, the day of the signing, maybe the day after, I tweeted out, mark my words, the Warriors will lose in the Western Conference Finals to the Spurs. Which I think is likely. And my Twitter is Cooper Ice 3, which we'll probably restate again, so don't bother listening.
But I won't restate that one. Anything else you'd like to add? So are the Spurs your favorite to win the Western Conference?
They're my favorite to win it all right now. I don't think there's...
I think they're my favorite to win the Western Conference, not my favorite to win it all. But
we'll get into playoff predictions later on. We're just talking
We will. So, let's just
talk about the Warriors. Let's move on.
Let's talk about the Warriors.
So we got the best team in the league, and then we got the 2016-2017.
Yeah, we have the 2015-2016 Warriors and the 2016-2017 Warriors. Last year, obviously, 73-9.
The question stated
records.
Is, which one could win in a 7-game series? The 2015-2016 Warriors or the 2016-2017 Warriors?
My answer is the 15-16 Warriors. I think the chemistry was tighter. I think the bench was better for that Warriors.
I think me and Gabe have a consensus on the show that to win in the playoffs, you need the bench.
Exactly.
And the Warriors of the 2015-2016 season, Sean Livingston, they still have Sean Livingston, but he was going off last year. Steph Curry was out most of the series against the Rockets because he got hurt like he usually does against the Rockets. And Sean Livingston was averaging 20 points per game that series. So I'm just going to... 2015-2016 hands down. Kevin Durant obviously adds a lot. I don't think I think they're a better team, but I just don't. I honestly I think it still goes 7 games. I don't know about you. I think that's 7-game series, right? That was 6 or 7 games.
I think it'd be 6. I think the 15-16 Warriors would win in 6.
My thing is, it's hard to. Kevin Durant obviously adds stuff, but you're taking away bench players. You're taking away players that meant a lot. Bogut, and you're not. Bogut and a lot of others. Harrison Barnes, starter. They took away their 2 big men, so now they're having to play Draymond at the center spot, which, starting 2015-2016 season, Draymond played small forward. He played in their small packages. They had him play when Iguodala and everyone was out. Barnes and Bogut were not playing. He played center as a small ball center, and that's what he's been playing. He's not a true center, which causes issues when you go up against strong big men. That's what That's why I think Kevin Durant, great player, but he's taken away from what's Steph's not as good this year. Steph's not. He's looking for the. I don't know if it's a problem, but Steph just isn't pulling up as much as he did. He doesn't have the confidence. He doesn't have the swagger. So I'm thinking about not being the. He's not the guy this year. He's not their.
See, I don't think the Warriors have a guy this year. I completely agree with you.
But that's my thing.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to say there is a guy, it's Kevin Durant. Because Kevin Durant, easily, if you're ranking top 3 players, he's ahead. Top 3. I don't even. Steph's probably not even top 5. Arguably.
Yeah, I think this is one of the first years in recent years that Steph Curry, I don't think he's been mentioned at all in the MVP race. No, he's not even in the top 5.
It's Kevin Durant, if anyone.
I would have to truly sit down and look and see if Steph Curry would even be in my top 10.
You're probably right, because it's just a hard thing to think about right now. And honestly, though, there's not a lot of players I would pass up on for the 2015-2016. Yeah, no player in the league in the 2015-2016 season, or even the 2016-2017 season, I would pass up on that Steph Curry that season. That Steph, despite he probably shouldn't have been unanimous, but they were just that good. There's a lot of players on that team that would that starting 5 go anywhere. They're the number 1 guy. This year, because the 4 guy, you can argue that Draymond's the top guy on his team. Last year, if he left and went to another team, he's easily the top guy on their team as soon as he got there. And this offseason is gonna be interesting. Steph's a free agent, hasn't signed a deal yet. He's probably gonna sign a deal, but you never know.
Kevin
Durant's always can opt out, which,
yep.
Man, sleeper agent goes to Warriors for a year, destroys them, then rejoins OKC.
That would be
funny, and people would be so sad at OKC because they burned all their jerseys.
I don't know how I feel about that. That'd be interesting.
You wouldn't. I don't know if they'd boo. They wouldn't be. It'd be like. It'd just be the LeBron thing. So you forgive him if he came back. He's a world-class player, top 3 player.
Yeah. So speaking of mixed feelings, let's quickly talk about, before we conclude the show. Obviously, we had some strong feelings towards LeVar Ball last week on the show.
Strongish.
I got on my pedestal for that.
Then you fell off because you made a Jay Cutler comment. Whichever one went that way. And then Brady just fell off and got suspended. He's on the commissioner's exempt list.
So, let's talk about LeVar's son Lonzo. He's a projected lottery pick in the NBA. It will happen. He's already declared versus Markelle Fultz or De'Aaron Fox. If you were an NBA GM, who would you take out of these 3 with the number 1 overall pick, and why?
It shouldn't be a question. It's Lonzo. He's the best player in this class. De'Aaron Fox, out of the 3, De'Aaron Fox is my 3rd. That's just how it is. De'Aaron Fox, good player. He's not as good as Lonzo or Fultz.
Interesting. My 3 are completely flipped as to what yours are.
Really?
My number 1 is De'Aaron Fox, and this is just. I mean, obviously the Celtics are probably going to get the first pick, but this is
more likely.
This is not addressing a team's needs. This is saying, if I were an NBA GM and I had to take one of these 3 to, let's say, kickstart a team, who would you take and why? I would take De'Aaron Fox. We've seen his playmaking ability. He's just phenomenal. He was fantastic. One of the phenomenal freshmen for Kentucky this year. And as we saw after they lost, he is just so passionate about his game. You really don't hear much about him in the media. He was able to put the team on his back during multiple points of this tournament, like in the Wichita State game.
I think it's going to be a hard. I just don't. De'Aaron Fox, I think he's going to be a good player, but I don't think he's ready to be the guy. Like I think Lonzo drafted into this. If he's drafted by the Lakers like LeVar wants, then I don't see a reason why he's not the number one. Like, why he's not third. He's the number one guy on that team. He's starting me. He's averaging 30 points a game. I don't know if De'Aaron Fox is ready to come off the bench in the NBA yet.
Here's my thing with De'Aaron Fox. I think his passion and his maturity, he's ready for that.
I think he's ready, but
I'm not going to dock. And this is not an attack at Lonzo.
Lonzo's a good person.
Lonzo is a good guy from everything I've heard. The reason I would take Lonzo at number 3 is because his big mouth bigot dad. I'm so tired of LeVar Ball. All he does is creates negative headlines now, and it's starting to affect his boys. It really is. Some NBA GMs are definitely concerned with LeVar Ball.
The red flag game, but that's more what LeVar wants.
It is.
But he knows the Lakers probably are not going to get the pick. And if he falls to the Lakers, then
he's going to go to the Lakers. Now, that's my thing with Lonzo, is his dad. I wouldn't want to deal with his dad from a marketing standpoint as a GM. Yes, he does market himself very well. He does get his name out there. But he says some things that you really wouldn't want associated with your team. Now, my argument for Markelle Fultz, I think he's very good.
I think he's probably the eventual number one.
I think he is too.
But that's more the Celtics need more than point guard.
I think he's ready. He's NBA ready. He's a very talented player. He's very mature. But I think the one thing he lacks, and I think this is why he's perfect for the Celtics, he lacks ability to lead and take over a team. Whereas if he were to join the starting lineup over in Boston, he doesn't need to lead necessarily. They have leaders in that locker room. They have things in place. And that's why I think they'll take Fultz number 1 overall.
I think Fultz, if they're going to keep the guy they're drafting Fultz. If they're drafting Lonzo, they're looking to trade him. Because Lonzo is going to be somebody that people will want in a trade. People want Lonzo, and they're hoping that the Celtics see all these issues with LeVar, that he drops to someone. And somebody, maybe an Indiana Pacers, or maybe a Chicago Bulls, will jump on it and be like, oh, we can get this deal, just Lonzo for this straight up, and that's all they're going to do. Because the pick, for most teams, the pick is more valuable. Like, so at traded line, if they were trading with their number 1 overall draft pick, or potentially, it was more valuable. Just because the possibility. But now if you had the player, if you're doing a player for player trade, which you can only trade the drafted players on the night of, or just how it goes. And so maybe if they draft Lonzo, there's an 80% chance that they trade Lonzo.
Yeah, I think Fultz will go number 1 overall.
He's the better fit.
But I completely agree with you.
I think Fox is the third taken. Maybe that's why I was ranking third on it. Because I still think Lonzo's taken above him, even if I don't. I think De'Aaron Fox might be the better player. I think De'Aaron Fox needs a little bit.
Yep. All right, guys. That'll do it for topics on today's show. So if you join us next week, we will be talking about, and please join us next week, we will be talking about Eastern Conference teams. We will be making a case for those teams as to why they can win the finals. We will be talking more baseball, as opening day is just around the corner.
We'll probably not talk too much baseball, because who knows in the first week by that point.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Be the first 2 days.
The NCAA basketball tournament will have concluded, and the NFL draft is coming up. Also, hopefully, the return of Brady. Indefinite suspension so far.
We'll see if the commissioner resolves this issue.
Working on that.
Tanner, we'll see if maybe we decide that that him taking a stand doesn't really affect the podcast as much as we thought it might. It might not be a distraction to us. So we'll see.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. You can follow me on Twitter at Gabe H Journalist, and
you can follow my Twitter at CooperX3. You can follow Brady's Twitter at OT Pedestal.
That is Pedestal for any of those who are wondering how to spell pedestal.
And then you can follow Tanner at TJ Coble or OT Pedestal.
Yeah.
He doesn't tweet about sports, but you can follow him.
He's an interesting follow anyways. He's very funny. I have
sure
my tweet notifications on for him.
Yep. Worldwide Wob He's also good to have your tweet notifications on.
Yeah, shout out to our boy Wob.
And, Lohan for Lohan. Halfbacks are half a fullback. 2 halfbacks make a fullback. 4 quarterbacks make a fullback. A lot of other things. And Steph Curry will sign with the Hornets in the offseason.